Congratulations on a very successful trip and visit of your Prime Minister to Singapore. Singapore and Malaysia are excellent partners, great neighbors. What went behind the scenes in preparation for this visit?
Yeah, Prime Minister Anwar was here on the 30th of January. It was his first visit and he was appointed as the Prime Minister in November. But Anwar and Singapore is not new. With Prime Minister Lee is not new. They know each other when Prime Minister Anwar was Deputy Prime Minister in the late 1990s. It's normal for a new Prime Minister of Malaysia to visit neighbouring countries, especially those who are close like Singapore. So we have been preparing this visit of Prime Minister Anwar to Singapore immediately after he was sworn in as the Prime Minister. So it take a bit more time for us to organize because it's end of the year and Singapore also are already having a lot of visitors coming to Singapore. So initially Prime Minister Anwar was supposed to come mid of January, but unfortunately because of conflicting schedule on both sides, then the visit happened on 30th of January.
Hi Commissioner, what else did you observe during the visit? There must have been other delegates who came along with the Prime Minister. So tell us something about the visit behind the scenes.
Prime Minister was in Indonesia and Brunei before he came to Singapore. But in Singapore, he brought the most number of ministers. We have Minister of Trade, of course Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Digital, and we also have Chief Minister of Johor and Premier of Sarawak. So it's a big delegation that reflect the importance that Malaysia put to Malaysia-Singapore relations. My foreign minister have his own engagement. He came on Sunday, so he met with a few minister, of course Minister Vivian and so on and so forth. So we hope that this will be a good start to a new Malaysia under Prime Minister Anwar. Then we can move forward with Singapore to explore new area of growth and so on and so forth.
Ambassador, there were 3 MOUs signed. Tell us about the MOUs, and my follow-up question is, after the MOUs have been signed, what work is happening to get them into fruition actually?
Singapore-Malaysia relation has been very close. We are close neighbor and that close relation is anchored on economic and trade relations. So the 2 MOUs that were signed was on MOU on digital economy and MOU on green economy. These are 2 fields that has been called as a new economic growth. So it's logical that for close partner like Malaysia and Singapore to embark on this new area of growth. The third MOU is MOU in the field of personal data protection relating to cyber security. So this is to ensure when we do digital trade or digital economy, then there are personal protection to both sides. We heard a lot of issue, a lot of stories about scammers and so on. So this is one way to prevent that from happening. I think signing on MOU is one thing, but as you rightly pointed out, on how do we implement. So we envisage that both sides will establish a working group to implement this MOU. Then I expect the first meeting to be undertaken in the month of March. So both sides are really eager to implement these MOUs, and we hope the working group can expedite their work.
Hi Commissioner, there is a lot of traffic that moves between Malaysia and Singapore on daily basis. There have been issues and there are solutions as well. What is your experience as of now, and how are you trying to facilitate the movement of people from one side to the other?
Land crossing between Malaysia and Johor is one of the busiest in the world. So as you rightly pointed out, we have a lot of Malaysians commuting daily to work in Singapore, and after that going back to their home mainly in Johor. So during the visit by the Prime Minister Anwar here, both Prime Ministers spoke about this as well. So both sides agree that we need to look into congestion, especially at the peak hour at the land crossing. So a few ideas was discussed, but now we are waiting for the technical agencies to look into this. One of the ideas is to expand the numbers of counters. The other is to ensure efficient flow of vehicles and so on and so forth. I think recently Singapore Sport ICA mentioned about the need to to have more automated clearance machines to be installed. So I think these are all steps that has been explored. So we hope that Malaysian that working in Singapore do not really need to leave their house as early as 4 a.m. as Prime Minister Anwar mentioned, so that they can spend more quality time with their family. So I think this required a cooperation from both sides. And fortunately, from Prime Minister visit here on 31st January, both sides agree to work closely on this issue.
Hi Commissioner, there is also a lot of people who go from Singapore for education to schools in Iskandar. During COVID, it was difficult for them to at least move at all. In terms of education cooperation, what do you see?
I mean, education has been also one of the important pillar for our people-to-people relationship. As you rightly pointed out, there are numbers of learning institutions in Iskandar established by Complex from Singapore from Malaysia. This will continue to grow. Of course, during pandemic, there are restrictions to movement and so on and so forth. But many schools in Iskandar have residential complex, so most of students are there. They are not impacted in terms of their education, but of course impacted in the sense that they are not able to commute during that period. But things go back to normalcy. But both sides continue to strengthen this people to people, especially on education linkage between two countries.
Also, another aspect of relationship which had taken a very nice dynamic turn was medical. There are many hospitals from Singapore which have set up. How is that area going on?
I mean, medical tourism or generally medical services is one of the area that Malaysia are giving attention to. We hope to grow this sector. I think as we all know, cost in Singapore has gone up tremendously. So the idea of not relocating but opening a branch of renowned university, renowned hospital in Singapore, in Johor, I think will probably bring down the cost of medical services. So I think it will be win-win for both sides, meaning that the Singapore businesses can grow in Malaysia, and of course Malaysia can avail themselves to maybe a better healthcare system. And of course foreigners, tourists can also come and avail themselves to this opportunity, not only in Johor, because when we talk about healthcare system, medical tourism is also a very important sector in Penang, Malacca and KL.
Talking about tourism, for every Singaporean, the first place to run to is Malaysia. So from your side, which are the states which are promoting tourism to their states, and are there any promotions, any new things that are happening during this year for people to take note of?
Tourism has always been important linkage between Singapore and Malaysia. I mean, many Singaporeans, they are aware of all the attraction in Malaysia. They venture to Langkawi, Penang, Pahang, Sabah, Sarawak. Many states are doing aggressive promotions for tourism sector this year. I mean, logically speaking, after 2 years or almost 3 years of non-movement and so on and so forth. So for most, I think Pahang and Sarawak is doing a lot in terms of marketing new tourism product in their state. So I think it's going to be a very exciting year for Malaysian tourism.
Because in Singapore, there are not only Singaporeans, there are also expatriates.
Yes.
And like my target group, a lot of ambassadors who come with their families, they have their communities. How would you promote Desaru for this demographics?
As you mentioned, Desaru has go through a process of rejuvenation recently.
Yes.
So last year in late October, I brought a group of ambassadors, high commissioners to Desaru. So it's quite interesting in the sense that now we can go to Desaru by ferry.
Yes.
From Tanah Merah. So it take about 90 minutes. The journey take about 90 minutes, and Desaru have a dedicated immigration custom clearance in Desaru itself. So it's quite interesting. Desaru now is being marketed for Singaporean and expat in Singapore as a weekend or weekdays gateway. You can go to Desaru with the ferry for 90 minutes without any traffic jam and so on and so forth. And then you can spend your 2-3 days in Desaru. People can play golf, they can visit the mangrove, the children can play at the water park and so on and so forth. It's become like a whole family attraction and so on and so forth. There are also potential investment in Desaru because they have still a lot of land to be developed. So Desaru management is also looking for potential investment from Singapore, and of course Singapore-based company. So I think exciting development for Desaru, and it's a worth place to be visited for this year.
And in terms of like InvestKL used to do a lot of promotions for Singaporeans to catch our attention. Are there any other states which are looking for investors? Are there any special sectors they are seeking investors from Singapore? Because you know Singapore is a hub. There are lots of multinationals here. Through my magazine, who would you like to reach out and what's your message?
I mean, Malaysia is always an attractive investment location. We have good connectivity, we have talented manpower and so on and so forth. I think this characteristic will continue to be developed by the government. So I think, there are a lot of potential to be explored in Malaysia. So last year we launched the National Investment Aspiration. So in that, NIA, we focus on a few, sectors. Of course, manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, and then we talk about digital and green economy. These are all areas that we would like to grow. We have a very strong ecosystem for semiconductors, mainly in Penang. So I think there are also scope for further investment by MNC based in Singapore. Johor has positioned themselves as a leading location for data centers. So we have a few companies based in Singapore now, establishing their own data centers in Johor and so on and so forth.
Wishing you all the best for the leaders retreat, and I hope things become stronger and stronger between our two countries. Thank you for your time,
Thank you.
Excellency.
Thank you.